Humanity never forgives. The year was 2157, and Earth had finally achieved what many thought impossible. Humanity had spread across the solar system. Colonies existed on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Mining operations ran day and night on asteroids. The human race was no longer confined to a single world. They had become a spacefaring civilization, but they were still alone. Despite centuries of searching, humanity had found no evidence of intelligent life beyond Earth. Radio telescopes scanned the heavens constantly. Probes ventured to distant stars. Scientists analyzed every signal from deep space. Nothing. The universe remained silent. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, humanity's largest warship. She watched Earth rotate slowly below, a blue marble wrapped in white clouds. After 30 years of service, she never got tired of this view. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform bore the marks of countless missions. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Commander James Wright, her second in command. He was younger, perhaps 40, with dark skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Always," Sarah replied. "My grandfather used to tell me stories about when humans only dreamed of reaching space. Now look at us." James nodded. "Sometimes I wonder if we're ready for what's out there." Sarah turned to face him. "We've prepared for decades. Our fleet is strong. Our defenses are solid. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." Neither of them knew that in less than 24 hours, those words would be tested in ways they could never imagine. The first contact happened without warning. It came not as a friendly greeting or a peaceful message. It came as fire from the sky. At exactly 0347 hours, sensors across the solar system detected an anomaly near Neptune. Space itself seemed to tear open, and from that wound poured ships, hundreds of them. Then thousands. They were unlike anything human engineers had ever designed. Their hulls were dark purple, almost black, covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and move. Each ship was massive, some spanning several kilometers in length. The aliens did not announce themselves. They did not attempt communication. They simply began their advance toward the inner solar system, destroying everything in their path. The first human casualties were the mining stations near Neptune. 300 workers vanished in nuclear fire before they could even send a distress signal. Then the scientific outposts on Triton were hit, 700 dead in seconds. The aliens moved with cold efficiency, showing no interest in communication or mercy. Admiral Chen received the emergency transmission while still on the Prometheus. Her blood ran cold as she watched the footage. Ships larger than cities were burning through space at speeds that should have been impossible. They left nothing but debris in their wake. "All hands to battle stations," she commanded, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her heart. "Get me a line to Earth Command. Now." The next 72 hours became a nightmare that humanity would never forget. Earth's combined military forces, over 500 warships that represented decades of construction and technology, moved to intercept the alien fleet. It was the largest military operation in human history. It was also the shortest. The Battle of Mars, as it would later be called, lasted exactly 47 minutes. Human weapons, which could crack asteroids and demolish mountains, barely scratched the alien shields. Their energy weapons cut through human armor like it was paper. Ship after ship exploded in silent flashes of light. Brave men and women died screaming into the void, their final moments lost in the cold darkness of space. Admiral Chen survived only because the Prometheus was at the rear of the formation. She watched helplessly as humanity's finest were slaughtered. The alien fleet didn't even slow down. They brushed aside centuries of human military development like a child sweeping away toys. When the aliens reached Earth, there was nothing left to stop them. The bombardment began on a Tuesday morning. People were going to work, children were walking to school, and life continued as normal for a few more precious minutes. Then the sky turned red. Energy weapons rained down from orbit, striking major cities first. New York vanished in a flash of white light. Beijing, Moscow, London, Tokyo, one by one, the great cities of humanity were erased from existence. Billions of people died in the first hour alone. Sarah Chen watched from orbit, tears streaming down her face. The Prometheus shook with each passing shockwave as the planet below burned. Her home, her family, everything she had ever known was being destroyed. "Admiral," James said softly, his voice breaking, "what do we do?" She didn't answer. What could she say? The scattered remains of the human fleet, perhaps 50 ships, hung in space like lost children. Below them, Earth was dying. The aliens continued their assault for 3 days straight. They were thorough. Cities burned, mountains crumbled, oceans boiled. When they finally stopped, only scattered survivors remained on the surface, hiding in bunkers and caves deep underground. But the aliens weren't finished. They landed ground troops, strange creatures that walked on 4 legs and breathed through masks. They hunted the survivors with machines and creatures that seemed bred for killing. Humans were rounded up and taken to massive camps. Some were experimented on. Others were simply worked to death. The aliens showed no emotion, no remorse. Humans were nothing to them, just resources to be exploited and discarded. Admiral Chen led the surviving fleet to the outer solar system, hiding among the asteroid belt. They watched helplessly as the occupation began. Every day they intercepted transmissions from Earth, screams, pleas for help, final goodbye messages from people who knew they were about to die. "We have to do something," James said during one of their endless planning sessions. "We can't just hide here forever." "What can we do?" Chen replied bitterly. "We saw what happened at Mars. Our weapons are useless against them. Then we find better weapons. We learn. We adapt." Chen looked at him for a long moment. Something in his eyes sparked a fire that had almost died within her. He was right. Surrender was not an option. Humanity had faced extinction before, ice ages, plagues, wars, and they had survived. They would survive this too. "Contact all surviving vessels," she ordered, "and reach out to the colonies on Titan and Europa. If they're still standing, we need to coordinate." The survivors organized quickly. The outer system colonies had been spared the worst of the attack, and they became humanity's new home. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked together with desperate urgency. They studied captured alien technology, reverse-engineered weapons, and developed new tactics. But Admiral Chen never forgot what she saw. Every night she watched the recordings from Earth. The burning cities, the screaming civilians, the cold indifference of the alien ships. She burned it into her memory, feeding her determination with pain and rage. Years passed. The aliens established a permanent presence on Earth, stripping the planet of resources and using human captives for labor and experimentation. They believed humanity was broken, scattered, and no longer a threat. They were wrong. In hidden bases throughout the outer solar system, humanity was rebuilding. They weren't just recovering, they were evolving. Scientists made breakthrough after breakthrough, driven by desperation and hatred. New ship designs emerged, incorporating stolen alien technology with human innovation. Weapons that could actually hurt the invaders were tested in secret. A new generation grew up knowing nothing but the stories of Earth and the promise of revenge. Admiral Chen was 73 when she finally saw the first prototype of what they called Project Phoenix. It was a warship unlike anything humanity had ever built. Its hull combined human steel with alien alloys. Its engines were faster than anything the invaders possessed. Its weapons could, according to tests, penetrate their shields. "It's beautiful," she whispered, touching the cold metal. "We've built 50 more in secret," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the lead engineer. She was young, born after the invasion, but her eyes held an old hatred. "And we're not stopping." Chen nodded slowly. "How long until we're ready?" "Another 10 years, maybe 15. We need more ships, more training, more weapons. We only get one chance at this. Then we wait." Chen straightened her aging shoulders. "Humanity has waited this long. We can wait a little longer." She turned to look at the ship one more time before leaving. Somewhere, impossibly far away, Earth still existed. Her people still suffered under alien rule. But the tide was going to turn. Admiral Sarah Chen died at 81, never seeing the revenge she had dreamed of. But before she passed, she recorded a message that would be played on every human ship, in every colony for generations to come. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen," the recording said, her voice weak but firm. "I watched our world burn. I saw billions die in a single day. The aliens thought they destroyed us. They thought we would fade away and be forgotten. They were wrong. Remember this: humanity never forgives. Never. One day, we will return. One day, we will make them pay for every life they took, every child they orphaned, every dream they crushed. This is not a threat. This is a promise. To whoever hears this, whether it's tomorrow or 1,000 years from now, remember Earth, remember what they did, and make them remember us." The recording ended, but humanity's memory continued, passed from parent to child, from teacher to student, from one generation to the next. The story of Earth, the story of loss, and the promise of vengeance that burned in every human heart. Deep in space, hidden from alien sensors, the human fleet grew. Ships multiplied like seeds in fertile soil. Technology advanced year after year. The survivors became warriors. The warriors became legends, and all of them, every single one, knew that one day the bill would come due. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had hurt humanity. They had broken families, destroyed homes, and taken everything that mattered. But they had left survivors, and survivors remember. In the end, that would be their greatest error. They had created an enemy that would never stop, never surrender, and never, ever forgive. 120 years after the fall of Earth, a young pilot named Marcus Cole sat in the cockpit of his fighter craft. He was 23 years old, born and raised on Titan Station, and he had never seen a blue sky or felt natural wind on his face. Everything he knew about Earth came from stories, recordings, and the bitter memories of his grandmother. "Final check complete," said the voice in his earpiece. "Phoenix Squadron, you are cleared for launch." Marcus took a deep breath. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart raced with anticipation. Today was the day. After more than a century of hiding, building, and waiting, humanity was finally ready to strike back. Around him, 5,000 warships powered up their engines. They were hidden in the shadow of a massive asteroid, invisible to alien sensors. Each ship carried weapons specifically designed to kill the invaders. Each pilot had trained their entire life for this moment. Grand Admiral Kenji Tanaka's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. He was the grandson of the engineer who had built the first Phoenix-class warship, and he had inherited his family's burning hatred for the aliens. "Warriors of humanity," he began, his voice calm but filled with emotion. "Today we stop running. Today we stop hiding. For 120 years we have remembered, we have trained, we have prepared. Now, the time for patience is over." Marcus gripped his controls tighter. Around him, pilots nodded silently at each other. Some had tears in their eyes. Others wore expressions of cold determination. "The aliens call themselves the Velcor," Tanaka continued. "They believe we are primitive creatures, easily conquered and forgotten. They have spent a century stripping our homeworld of its resources. They have worked our captured brothers and sisters to death in labor camps. They have experimented on our children. The Admiral paused. The silence was heavy. They made one mistake. They let us survive. And humans, when pushed to the edge, become something terrifying. We become patient hunters. We become brilliant engineers. We become unstoppable warriors. Today, we remind the Velcor what happens when you hurt humanity. The fleet powered forward, breaking from the asteroid's shadow. Marcus felt his ship surge beneath him as they entered hyperspace, a technology they had stolen and improved from captured Velcor vessels. The target was the Velcor command station, orbiting Mars. Intelligence gathered by human spies over decades revealed it was the center of alien operations in the solar system. Destroying it would cripple their ability to coordinate and send for reinforcements. They emerged from hyperspace right on top of the station. The Velcor didn't even have time to raise their shields. The opening volley was devastating. Thousands of missiles, each carrying warheads designed from captured alien technology, slammed into the station. Explosions rippled across its purple hull. For the first time in over a century, alien blood was spilled by human hands. "All fighters, engage!" came the command. Marcus pushed his throttle forward and dove into the chaos. Velcor fighters scrambled to respond, but they were confused and disorganized. Human weapons tore through their shields with brutal efficiency. Ship after ship erupted in flames. It felt like a dream. For generations, humans had heard stories about how unstoppable the Velcor were, how their technology was centuries ahead, how resistance was futile. But here, now, the enemy was dying just like anyone else. "Target locked," Marcus said, his voice steady. He fired his weapons, and a Velcor cruiser split in half. The explosion lit up his cockpit like a sunrise. Within 3 hours, the battle was over. The Velcor command station was a burning ruin, drifting into Mars' gravity well. Over 200 enemy ships had been destroyed. Humanity had lost only 12. For the first time in 120 years, human voices cheered over the communication channels. Pilots wept openly. Some laughed with relief and joy. They had done it. They had proven that the Velcor could be hurt, could be beaten, could be killed. But Grand Admiral Tanaka's voice cut through the celebration. "This is only the beginning. The Velcor still hold Earth. They still have billions of our people in captivity. Do not celebrate yet. We have a long war ahead of us." The fleet regrouped and prepared for Phase 2. The liberation of Earth's moon came next. The Velcor had established mining operations there, using human prisoners as forced labor. Intelligence estimated 15,000 humans were still alive in the lunar camps. Marcus was part of the assault team that landed on the surface. It was the first time humans had set foot on the moon in over a century. The landscape was scarred by alien machinery, massive drills and refineries that had torn deep into the lunar rock. The ground assault was brutal. Velcor soldiers fought with desperation, their strange weapons burning through cover and armor. Human soldiers fell, their blood staining the gray dust. But for every human who died, 10 aliens went with them. Marcus found himself fighting beside a woman named Elena Reyes. She was older, maybe 35, with scars on her face and a calm focus in her eyes. They moved through an alien base together, covering each other, killing everything that moved. "First time on the ground?" Elena asked during a brief pause in fighting. "Yeah," Marcus admitted, "different from the cockpit." "It's more personal down here," she said. "You see their eyes when they die? Makes it feel real." A Velcor soldier burst through a door, and Elena killed it with a single shot. The creature collapsed, its 4 legs twitching. Its mouth opened and closed, producing sounds that might have been words. "Do they talk?" Marcus asked. "They do," Elena answered coldly. "But I don't care what they have to say, not after what they did." They continued deeper into the base. What they found there would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. The prison section was a house of horrors. Humans were kept in small cages, barely large enough to lie down. Many were sick, covered in wounds and sores. Some had clearly been subjected to experiments. Limbs replaced with mechanical attachments, eyes replaced with alien sensors. They had been turned into tools, living machines forced to work until they broke. Marcus felt his stomach turn. Beside him, battle-hardened soldiers wept at the sight. Elena's face remained stone cold, but her hands trembled. "Get them out," she ordered. "Get them all out." The survivors were barely alive, but they recognized their rescuers. Human faces, human voices. After decades of captivity, they were finally being saved. An old man grabbed Marcus's arm as he helped carry survivors to the transport ships. The man's eyes were milky white. He had been blinded years ago, but his grip was strong. "Is it true?" the old man whispered. "Are we winning?" Marcus nodded, then remembered the man couldn't see. "Yes, we're winning. We came back." The old man smiled, the first smile he had allowed himself in 40 years. "I knew you would. I always told them. I always said humanity would come back. We never forget. We never forgive." Those words echoed in Marcus's mind as he watched the transport ships lift off. 15,000 survivors were rescued that day. 15,000 people who had spent their lives in hell, clinging to the hope that one day someone would come. The war continued across the solar system. Battle after battle, humanity pushed the Velcor back. Each victory was hard-won. Each planet and moon was liberated at great cost. But the humans never wavered. They had waited too long for this. Grand Admiral Tanaka proved to be a brilliant strategist. He used hit-and-run tactics, guerrilla strikes, and psychological warfare. He made the Velcor paranoid, never knowing where the next attack would come from. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens tried to call for help from their homeworld, but human scientists had cracked their communication codes years ago. Distress signals were blocked or altered. The Velcor in the solar system were completely alone, cut off from their empire. Slowly, inevitably, humanity reclaimed what was theirs. Mercury, Venus, the asteroid belt, each fell back into human hands. Resources that the aliens had spent a century extracting were recaptured. Factories were rebuilt. The human military grew larger every month as more ships rolled off assembly lines. 5 years into the war, only Earth remained under Velcor control. Marcus Cole was now a captain, commanding his own ship. He stood on the bridge, looking at the blue planet through his viewport. It was still beautiful, despite everything. The continents were scarred, the ice caps had melted further, and strange structures dotted the surface, but it was still Earth. "Hard to believe," said Elena, who served as his first officer now. "Our ancestors walked on that ground, built cities, raised families. We'll walk there again," Marcus said. "Soon." The final assault was planned for the anniversary of the original invasion, a symbolic choice that resonated deeply with every human alive. The Velcor had chosen that day to attack Earth 125 years ago. Now humanity would take it back on the same day. The fleet gathered in orbit around Mars. Over 10,000 warships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Veterans stood beside fresh recruits. Old soldiers who remembered the stories from grandparents fought alongside young fighters who had been born on distant moons. Grand Admiral Tanaka addressed them one final time. "Tomorrow, we take back Earth. Tomorrow, we end this war. The Velcor thought they could break us. They thought pain would make us surrender. They were wrong. Pain made us stronger. Loss made us determined, suffering made us patient, and patience has made us deadly." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Fight for the billions who died in the first attack. Fight for the generations that suffered under occupation. Fight for the children who will be born on free soil. Fight for Earth. Tomorrow, we go home. The fleet jumped to Earth space at dawn. The battle for humanity's homeworld was the bloodiest of the war. The Velcor had fortified their position for decades, building orbital defenses and ground installations. They knew this was their last stand, and they fought with desperate fury. But humanity had waited 125 years for this moment. Nothing would stop them now. Marcus led his squadron into the heart of the battle. Explosions lit up the sky in every direction. Ships fell burning through the atmosphere, leaving trails of fire and debris. The noise was deafening even through his helmet. Alarms, screams, orders being shouted over damaged communications. His wingman took a direct hit and vanished in a ball of flame. Another friend, gone in an instant. Marcus didn't have time to mourn. He gritted his teeth and kept fighting. The orbital defenses fell after 6 hours of continuous assault. Human ground troops began landing on the surface, meeting fierce resistance in every ruined city. Street by street, building by building, they pushed the Velcor back. In old New York, now a crater surrounded by alien structures, soldiers planted the flag of the United Earth Forces. In the remains of Beijing, liberation fighters embraced former prisoners who had been freed from labor camps. In London, Tokyo, Moscow, across every continent, humans took back their world. Marcus landed his damaged ship near what had once been the Grand Canyon. The landscape was unrecognizable, turned into a massive alien mining operation. But beneath the scars, it was still Earth. He could feel it. He stepped out onto the soil. The first time in his life he had touched real ground, not a space station floor or a lunar surface. It was warm. It was alive. It was home. Around him, soldiers knelt and touched the dirt. Some cried. Others stood in silence, overwhelmed by the moment. They had done it. After 125 years of exile, humanity had returned. But the war wasn't over yet. The Velcor still held their last fortress in what used to be South America. Thousands of enemy soldiers had dug in there, prepared to fight to the death. And they still had hostages, the last human captives from the occupation. Grand Admiral Tanaka ordered the siege. There would be no orbital bombardment, no massive strikes that might harm the prisoners. This would be done the hard way, soldier by soldier. Marcus joined the assault force. He and Elena fought side by side through the alien fortifications. For 7 days, the battle raged without pause. Thousands died on both sides. The ground was soaked with blood from 2 species. On the 8th day, the Velcor surrendered. Their commander, a towering creature named Zalrek, stood before the human generals. His 4 legs were shaking, and his breath came in ragged gasps through his mask. "We request terms," he said in broken human language. "Mercy. Prisoner exchange." Grand Admiral Tanaka looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Mercy?" he repeated. "Did you show mercy to New York? To Beijing? To the billions you killed in a single day?" Zalrek was silent. "Did you show mercy to the children you experimented on? The workers you worked to death? The families you tore apart?" Still silent. Tanaka stepped closer. "We remember everything, every life you took, every crime you committed. Humanity never forgives." The Velcor prisoners were taken into custody. They would face trial for their crimes, every single one of them. The human captives were freed, many too weak to stand, too damaged to fully recover. But they were alive. They were home. As night fell on the first free day on Earth in over a century, Marcus sat on a hillside and watched the stars. Elena sat beside him, silent but present. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now we rebuild," Elena replied. "And then—" She trailed off, her eyes fixed on the sky where distant suns glittered. "Then what?" Elena's expression hardened. "Then we make sure they never threaten anyone again." The Velcor have a homeworld. They have an empire. They thought they could destroy us and move on. They need to learn that attacking humanity has consequences." Marcus nodded slowly. She was right. The invasion had come from somewhere. The Velcor Empire still existed far beyond human space, and as long as it existed, humanity would never be truly safe. The war for Earth was over, but a new war, a war of vengeance that would span galaxies, was just beginning. Humanity never forgives. And now, the Velcor would learn exactly what that meant. The countdown to retribution had begun. 50 years after the liberation of Earth, the human armada gathered at the edge of the solar system. It was the largest fleet ever assembled by any species, over 50,000 warships, each one carrying weapons that could crack planets open. Behind them, supply ships and carriers stretched for millions of kilometers, ready to support a campaign that would take them across the galaxy. Admiral Marcus Cole, now 73 years old, stood on the bridge of the flagship Vengeance. His hair had turned silver and lines marked his face, but his eyes still burned with the same fire he had carried since his first battle. He had spent the last 50 years preparing for this moment. "Fleet status report," he called out. "All ships at full readiness, Admiral," replied his tactical officer. "Navigation plots confirmed. We're ready to jump." Marcus nodded. He turned to look at the people on his bridge, some young, some old, all of them united by a common purpose. They had come from every corner of human space. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and pilots. The best humanity had to offer. Elena Reyes sat in the chair beside him. She was 85 now, too old for ground combat, but still sharp as a blade. She had refused to stay behind. This was personal for her, as it was for everyone. "You know," she said quietly, "when we left Earth as refugees, I never imagined we'd be doing this." "None of us did," Marcus replied, "but here we are." The coordinates for the Velcor homeworld had been extracted from captured officers over decades. Their planet was called Velcar Prime, located in a distant arm of the galaxy. It was the heart of an empire that spanned hundreds of star systems. The Velcor had dominated this region of space for thousands of years, conquering and enslaving dozens of species. Humanity was about to change that. Grand Admiral Yuki Sato, great-granddaughter of the original engineer Tanaka, gave the order. Her voice rang clear across every ship in the fleet. "Attention all vessels. Today we embark on a mission 175 years in the making. We go not for conquest, not for glory, but for justice. The Velcor believed they could attack our world, slaughter our people, and face no consequences. They were wrong." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "We are not the same species they attacked. We are stronger, smarter, and more determined than they ever imagined. And we have not forgotten a single soul they murdered. This fleet carries the memory of billions. Today, we deliver the bill." The fleet jumped into hyperspace together. The journey would take 3 months. During the voyage, Marcus spent his time reviewing intelligence reports and coordinating with other admirals. The Velcor Empire was vast, with thousands of warships and trillions of soldiers. But human spies had spent decades infiltrating their systems, planting viruses and gathering information. When the attack came, the enemy would be weakened before the first shot was fired. He also spent time walking among the crew, talking to young soldiers who had never known war firsthand. They had grown up on stories of the invasion, of the occupation, of the long exile. Now they were going to write their own chapter in human history. One evening, a young pilot named David approached Marcus in the observation lounge. He couldn't have been more than 20, with nervous eyes and restless hands. "Admiral, can I ask you something?" "Of course." David hesitated. "Is it true you were there for the liberation? That you actually set foot on Earth for the first time?" Marcus smiled slightly. I was. I remember the feeling of real soil under my boots. It was the most overwhelming moment of my life. My grandmother talks about Earth sometimes, David said quietly. She was born in the camps. She never knew anything but captivity until you freed them. She always said that humanity would make the Velcor pay for everything. Marcus placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. Your grandmother was right, and you're going to be part of that. What we do at Velcor Prime won't just be revenge. It will be a message to every species in the galaxy that humanity does not break, does not surrender, and never forgives those who harm us. David nodded, his expression hardening with resolve. I won't let you down, Admiral. I know you won't. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Velcor system. Before them stretched a solar system dominated by a massive red star. 7 planets orbited it, and the 4th planet, Velcor Prime, pulsed with the lights of 1 trillion Velcor citizens. For a moment, no one spoke. They had traveled across the galaxy to reach this place. 50,000 ships hung in space, facing the heart of the empire that had once tried to destroy them. Then the alarms began. The Velcor had detected them, even with all their preparations, even with the sabotage and the sleeper agents. The empire was vast. Warships began pouring from orbital stations. Fighters launched in swarms. Defense platforms powered up their weapons. Admiral Sato's voice cut through the chaos. All ships, battle formation, execute Operation Remembrance. The battle began. Human warships tore into the Velcor defenses with brutal efficiency. Missiles carrying antimatter warheads struck orbital stations, reducing them to expanding clouds of debris. Beam weapons sliced through enemy cruisers like knives through cloth. Fighter squadrons engaged in deadly dances, filling the void with explosions. Marcus commanded the vengeance from the center of the formation. His ship absorbed hit after hit, but its shields held. Human engineering, built on foundations of alien technology and refined by generations of scientists, proved superior. Status of the viral attack? Marcus demanded. Confirmed successful, Admiral. 70% of their communication network is compromised. They can't coordinate effectively. This was the result of 50 years of preparation. Human hackers had infiltrated Velcor systems across the galaxy, planting dormant viruses that activated the moment the battle began. Now the enemy was fighting blind and deaf, unable to receive orders or send reinforcements. The outer defenses fell within the first day. The inner ring held longer, but eventually even it crumbled before the relentless human assault. By the end of the first week, Velcor Prime's orbit was clear of defenders. Then came the ground assault. Troop transports descended through the atmosphere, protected by fighter escorts. They landed in the capital city, a sprawling metropolis that covered an entire continent. The Velcor fought desperately, throwing everything they had at the invaders. They used civilian shields, guerrilla tactics, and suicide attacks. None of it mattered. Humanity had spent 175 years preparing for this. They had studied every aspect of Velcor society, every weakness, every vulnerability, and they fought with a fury that shocked even themselves. Marcus landed on the planet's surface to observe the final assault on the Imperial Palace. The building was massive, a fortress of purple stone that had stood for millennia. Inside, the Velcor Emperor cowered with his guards, the last of his defenders. Elena walked beside Marcus, leaning on a cane but refusing to show weakness. Around them, human soldiers secured the streets. Velcor civilians were rounded up and held in detention zones. There would be no massacre of innocents, despite what some had advocated. Humanity would not become what the Velcor had been. We actually did it, Elena said softly. We came all this way. We're not done yet, Marcus replied. The Emperor needs to answer for his crimes. The assault on the palace was brief but intense. The Emperor's guards were elite warriors, the best the Velcor had to offer. But they faced soldiers who had been trained since childhood for exactly this fight. Within an hour, the last defenders fell. Marcus walked through the ruined halls of the palace, his boots crushing ancient artifacts beneath their soles. He felt no satisfaction, no joy, only a cold sense of completion. This needed to be done. This needed to happen. And now, it was happening. The Emperor waited in his throne room, surrounded by his dead guards. He was ancient by Velcor standards, his 4 legs thin and trembling, his breathing mask working overtime. But his eyes, all 6 of them, still held defiance. "You think you have won?" the Emperor rasped in the Universal Translator's artificial voice. "You think destroying me will change anything? The Velcor Empire has stood for 10,000 years. We have conquered species older and stronger than you. We will rise again." Marcus stepped forward. He thought of his grandmother's stories. He thought of the old blind man who had grabbed his arm on the moon. He thought of every human who had suffered and died because of the creature before him. "No," Marcus said simply. "You won't." He gestured to his soldiers. "Take him. He'll face trial on Earth. Every survivor from the occupation will see him answer for what he ordered." The Emperor was dragged away, shouting curses and threats. But his words were empty now. His fleet was destroyed. His planet was occupied. His empire was crumbling as news of the defeat spread. In the following months, the Velcor Empire collapsed. Species they had conquered for centuries rose up against them. Worlds broke away to form independent governments. The great web of control that had sustained their civilization for millennia dissolved like morning mist. Human diplomats moved through the chaos, forming alliances, offering protection, and spreading the story of what the Velcor had done to Earth. Dozens of species had suffered similar fates, their worlds attacked, their people enslaved, their histories erased. They saw humanity as liberators, as proof that the Velcor could be defeated. Earth itself became a center of galactic attention. Species from across the stars sent representatives to the planet that had been destroyed and rebuilt. They wanted to see for themselves the world that had refused to die. Marcus Cole retired from military service at 80. His final act was presiding over the trial of the Velcor Emperor on the rebuilt grounds of what had once been London. Millions watched, in person and across the galaxy, as the creature who had ordered Earth's destruction faced justice. The trial lasted 6 months. Survivors from the occupation testified about the horrors they had endured. Records from Velcor archives revealed the cold calculations that had marked humanity for extinction, not out of hatred or fear, but simply because Earth's resources were valuable and humans were considered too primitive to matter. The Emperor showed no remorse. He defended his actions as the natural right of a superior species. He called humanity vermin that should have been exterminated completely. His words only hardened the resolve of those who judged him. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all charges. The sentence was execution, not quick, but slow. He would be confined on Earth, forced to watch as the planet he had tried to destroy flourished and grew. He would live to see his own empire vanish into history while humanity spread across the stars. And when he finally died, his body would be burned and scattered, leaving nothing to be remembered. Some called it cruel. Most called it justice. Marcus spent his final years living in a small house on the rebuilt coast of what had been Japan. He watched the ocean every morning, marveling at the fact that humans could again stand on beaches and feel sand between their toes. Elena lived nearby, and they often shared meals together, 2 old warriors enjoying the peace they had fought to create. The galaxy was changing. Humanity had become a major power, respected and feared in equal measure. New alliances formed, new threats emerged. The universe was vast and dangerous, and Earth's children would face many challenges in the years ahead. But they faced them as a united species. They faced them with technology and determination that had been forged in suffering. And they faced them knowing one absolute truth that every other species in the galaxy now understood. Humanity never forgives. Not the attacks on their homeworld, not the billions murdered, not the generations enslaved, not the centuries of exile. Every slight was recorded, every crime remembered. And when the time was right, justice was delivered, no matter how long it took, no matter the cost. In the rebuilt city of New York, a monument stood at the center of the Memorial Park. It was a simple stone pillar, engraved with the names of every city destroyed in the original attack. At its base was a plaque with words that every human child learned from the moment they could read. Here stood Earth. Here our ancestors fell. Here we rose again. The universe watches. Let them remember. Attack us, and we will never stop. Hurt us, and we will return the pain 1,000-fold. Attempt to destroy us, and we will survive, rebuild, and hunt you to the end of time. This is not anger. This is not hatred. This is simply who we are. Humanity never forgives. Admiral Marcus Cole died at 92, peacefully in his sleep. He was buried on Earth, in view of the ocean he had loved. His headstone bore no rank, no titles, no list of battles won, just his name and a simple epitaph. He remembered. He waited. He made them pay. Across the galaxy, humanity continued to expand. They settled new worlds, made new discoveries, and built civilizations that their ancestors could never have imagined. They made friends among the stars and enemies as well. They faced new challenges with the same determination that had brought them through the darkest days. And wherever they went, whatever they did, they carried with them the memory of Earth, the burning cities, the fallen billions, the long years of exile, and the promise that had driven them across the stars. Never forget, never surrender, never forgive. This was humanity. And the universe would never make the mistake of underestimating them again.